Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AM Air Pronouns, and welcome to episode 54 of the Five of Swords, first episode of the month of February 2022. Alright, well, let's dive in. Haven't got any housekeeping to do that I know of. So, we're exploring the Five of Swords today. So our first section is just swords in general. So first card I got up for that is the Five of Swords from the Hush Tarot, and we've got a gentlemanly soldier, I think Civil War type era, the 1800s type deal. He's picking through weeds, picking up swords. He's got three in one hand. He's holding them down by the points. They're rather small swords. He's holding them down by the points, and he's picking another fourth one up from the weeds, and he's got a fifth one behind him. So he's kind of just picking up swords from the weeds. It's very interesting. So in the swords, in the story of the swords from 4, this card is the section where we've woken up from a rest and we're ready to fight our way forward as needed. We've got all our weapons and our backups. He's like, okay, I've gotten up from rest. I've got to find all my stuff again. Got to find all my swords. Got to pick them up. The weeds have overgrown where I left them, so now I've got to go find them. So that's this card in the story of the swords. Alright, next, the air. We've got 5 of air from the good tarot here, and we've got a person kind of wearing ballerina style clothes. They're all in white. The leotard, or the leggings, might be a leotard. I can't remember the name for it. But the leggings, it's like a white bodysuit, and there's no skirt. It's actually a little bit odd looking because, well, it might be because they're wearing feathers along their arms, so it kind of looks like their hips are up against their chest. I'm not sure. I'm not that great with anatomy. But yeah, so it looks like their legs up against their chest. They've got one leg raised behind them. They're on their toes in ballet shoes. They're all in white, like I said, got a white feather mask on their face, and they're in the sky with clouds below them and 5 white doves flying beneath them as well. So the kind of air feeling I get for this is just kind of for this card in general is kind of like a howling wind across like a vast empty plains across mountains and valleys. It's just an open area that it's just the wind is just whooshing across, and it's kind of desolate looking. This one, of course, is a little bit more joyful. It's like the howling wind, like up high in the sky. It's like at that point where winds are like moving at a very fast, rapid pace. But either way, very fast moving wind and kind of in an empty, open area. That's kind of the feel of air I have for this card. Now, if you associate swords with fire, you could still kind of do that. It'd be more like almost like a wildfire, like rushing across the plains. That's how I'd see it. But anyway, you do you with that. That's how I see it, and that's how I energetically feel it. You might feel a little bit differently. That's cool. Alright, getting into the more meatier section of this now, we're going to get into the numerology, and I've got my Tarot La Favole Tarot. I can never remember the name. But either way, it's more of a pip suit, and all the suits are different. And technically you got to make your own correspondences to this one. So the suits in the La Favole Tarot are roses, crosses, masks, and what's the last one? Roses, crosses, masks. No, it's not. I forget what the fourth one is. But either way, it doesn't have a correspondence to traditional Rider-Waite-Smith tarot or the Marseille tarot, or traditional tarot in general. It doesn't have the traditional suit assignments, so you kind of have to make your own. So for me, I assign the masks to the swords or the suit of air. So 5 of masks, and it's a pip deck too. So With this one, we've just got 5 masks. They're the old-fashioned masquerade masks, where it's just a half mask, but it's attached to a stick, so you have to actually hold it up. It doesn't have a tie or anything. We've got 5 of them here, and we want to look a little bit at how they're styled. So there's 4 on each corner, or there's 1 on each corner, sorry. So there's 4 in kind of a square, and they're all facing inward with the sticks on the outside, so they're making like a box, and there's a 5th one kind of lying a little bit haphazardly in the middle. So it's reminiscent of the 5 in the Pythagorean birth chart, where the 5 is literally in the center. It's the only number that is completely boxed in on all sides. It is the 2nd soul number. It's the number of the heart center. It represents love and freedom of expression, freedom of emotion, and artistic freedom, emotional freedom. 5 represents freedom, breaking out, chaos. That's one of its unique factors, is the fact that it's the only number that is completely contained, but it's also the number of freedom, of breaking out from that containment, which that's basically it. So to gain that freedom, we have to break out of containment type deal. It represents how that freedom must be obtained by dismantling the rigid barriers that seek to entrap us. So we've got the 5th mask in the middle of this barrier of 4 other masks. So it's got to break out. It's got to work to actually break out. So that is the number 5. All right. So moving on to the astrology, we're gonna dive into the Celestial Tarot first. So in the Celestial Tarot, the 5 of Swords is associated with Pegasus. So we've got a very ghostly looking horse with kind of, well, he does actually have wings on there. It's just you can't quite see him. So we've got Pegasus flying through the skies. We've got the symbol of Mercury and the symbol of Aquarius over here. We've got 5 swords all lined up in a row down below him, all pointing downwards. I know there's a thing with swords, if they're pointing upwards, the energy is moving fast and outwards, but if they're pointing downwards, the energy is slowly being more contained. In the Celestial Tarot, all the swords tend to point downwards, so it tends to be a bit more muted energy type deal, like putting that energy down towards the ground instead of out into the world. So again, this card is associated with the constellation of Pegasus. It's also associated with the Quintile, the 72-degree aspect, which is where you break the entire circle up into fifths, basically. So it's 1/5 of a 360-degree circle. It's associated with the 2nd Deacon of Aquarius, constellation Pegasus, and Mercury. So Mercury and Aquarius is what this card is in the Celestial Tarot and in modern contemporary astrology. Basically, as I've stated before, in modern astrology, the different deacons, the 10 degrees of each sign, are associated with the different sign in the same element. So it always starts with, say, Aries. Always the first deacon is always Aries. Leo, the first deacon is the deacon of Leo. The first 10 degrees of Leo is it's a double Leo type deal, and so on and so forth. And then it's just each of the same element of signs. So that's how the Celestial Tarot follows, is modern astrology with that. So the quintile is, again, dividing the circle into 72 degrees. Blech. It is the point of talent. This is the place, if a quintile shows up in aspect in your chart, it's where your talents lie. If, like, say you've got a quintile between Mercury and Venus, then one of your talents might have to do with speaking beautifully or writing beautifully, communicating beautifully. You might be a romance author, or you might be able to write poetry really, really well. It'd be a talent. All right, so if we've got a quintile between Mercury and Venus, so it's not only a point of it's a point of talent, creativity, so we could put that as writing beautifully. And then since it's also a place where we feel a need to categorize and order things methodically, go back to that example of poetry. Maybe you're someone who doesn't like to write freeform poetry. You prefer to be a little bit more structured. You like your specific styles of poetry, like a haiku or the limerick, or I know there's other ones too, I just cannot think of the names at the moment. It's also where we can find a fascination with patterns and structures, perfectionist tendencies, and the desire to build or make things. Okay, so basically, poetry, a very good example, because you want things ordered, you want things structured, you want things to be beautiful. You have pretty good easy time of it. It's got the energy of both the trine, where things are like the easiest. They come so naturally, you don't even have to work at them, basically. So it's a very easy talent to fall into it. It's also got the energy of the opposition, where things are a little tense, where you have to actually work to get things. So things come easy, but it tends to be a pet peeve. Like if it's not exactly perfect, it drives you nuts, and you have to work at it until it actually is perfect for it, what you consider perfect. Which means it can point to places where we find conflicts, where our pet peeves, or I bet if I looked at my chart, I'd find a quintile that has to do with why I have, I forget the name of it, but it's basically where certain sounds for just irrationally drive me nuts. Like I cannot stand them. They piss me off for no reason at all. Probably could find that under a pet peeve thing, or under a quintile. Maybe. I'd have to look and see if I could find it. So, but being able to find those points of conflict help you be able to integrate and work with them easily. Like the fact that I figured out that, oh hey, this is why this drives me absolutely batshit insane, has helped it like actually ease a little bit, because I can sit there and go, okay, no, they don't need to do anything, they're just fucking chewing, and I can like do something to like get my mind off of, like get my ears off of it. It's the big thing, is like I can actually feel it in my ears, which is the worst of it. So sometimes I'll have to be like, nope, I can't do this, put headphones in, blast music like right now. But it's something I can do, and it helps me like not sit there and just get more and more pissed off at them without even knowing why I'm getting so pissed off. So there's that. It's finding those points of irrationality and focus, and irrational focus and irritation, and being able to like, okay, now I know a little bit why. Like I can kind of recognize it and actually do something that helps ease it a little bit. So that's the quintile. So Aquarius is it's a fixed air sign, and it's a day sign, so it's a day energy. So it's very active and out there and moving. It's a fixed sign, so it likes things to be the same order and structure constantly. It's an air sign, so it has to do with mental. A lot of things. It's the point in the middle of winter, so everything is stable and persistent, but it's also the point of futuristic thinking, of idealism, of social groups and social causes. It's the point where we're like, okay, things are good. We've just been through Capricorn. We've got our ground under us, and we like this ground here. How can we expand even more? How can we like intercommunicate with the community? That's the thing about air signs, is they tend to be a lot of communication and working with others. That's why the first two of them tend to be dualistic signs. Alright, so then it's Mercury in Aquarius. So Mercury has to do with the mind, communication, swiftness, short travel, like short trips, like from your house to the grocery store type deal. It's not the long-term trips. That's Sagittarius and Jupiter. It has to do with everyday commutes, thieves and tricksters, logic, writing, wit, speech. So Mercury is all about the mind, communication, wit, all that stuff. So, and then given that it's the second deacon, so it's the second 10 degrees section of the sign, so it's degrees 10 through 19. And this is the middle of the sign. So it's well into the sign's energy and lessons of it. It's the point where we're no longer entering and exploring this new energy. We're well and truly in the middle of it, and we're figuring it all out. We're starting to master it. We're starting to like really actually understand it and embody the energy of Aquarius, basically. Last Deacon is when we're slowly moving out and like we're like really mastering it. This is we're in it. We're in the middle of it. So basically, we started with the first Deacon. That's when you're like first like, oh, this is a new thing. We're exploring. We still don't know everything about it, but we're starting to learn a little bit. Middle of it is, okay, we've been here for a couple of years. We know our shit. We're not masters of it. We haven't mastered all this energy and lessons, but we're working on it. Last degree is like, we've been through these lessons. We're just kind of repeating, doing the tests, getting this like perfect. And then we'll move on to the next one type deal. But right now we're in the middle of it in this second Deacon. So Mercury in Aquarius, to add that, is enlightened perceptions and farsightedness. So because Aquarius is all expansive and Mercury tends to be very focused on the mind, it's like, and Aquarius is an air sign, it's like triple mind type deal. We're very focused on the mental aspect, on the connections and the social aspects especially. Thoughts and ideas become more progressive. We want to consider what could be, view things through a slightly more rational lens with Mercury and Aquarius. So all of that to sum up that. So second Deacon of Aquarius, Mercury and Aquarius, and I forgot to add this on there, but so basically when I was saying that we have each of the deacons is ruled by a different sign of that same element. So if the first Deacon of Aquarius is ruled by Aquarius, so it's Aquarius and Aquarius, it's a double Aquarius type deal. Second Deacon would be Gemini. So that's why it's ruled by Mercury, because Mercury rules Gemini. So we're in the Gemini Deacon of Aquarius, basically. So Gemini, the twins, that duality where it's... Gemini duality is we're constantly back and forth communicating, listening, actively talking, back and forth, spreading ideas, building. Gemini is a mutable sign which just wants to constantly change. So we're in the point where Gemini is... It's the Gemini energy inside of Aquarius, and it's just... Everything is moving around, blowing up. Like I said, this is the middle. This is where we're really getting into and exploring the energy. So Gemini is great for exploration. So take Gemini energy, Aquarius energy, smash them together, add a flavor, overall flavor of Mercury. You have your second Deacon of Aquarius. Alright, so moving on to the constellation. The constellation of Pegasus. So first off, it's a constellation in the northern sky, and it's named after the winged horse in Greek mythology. It is one of 48 constellations recognized by Ptolemy, one of 88 recognized today. So the myth of Pegasus. So Pegasus was born when Perseus cut off Medusa's head and he sprang from her neck. Is the short and sweet of it. So it ties into like at least 3 different myths, which most Greek myths do, is they tend to all tie into each other. So basically Medusa was, there's a couple of different versions. She was, what the basics we know for sure is she was a priestess of Athena, and she worked in Athena's temple, and basically Athena is a virgin goddess, so not giving up your power, not sleeping with men type deal. But the big thing with virginity is what virgin meant, especially back then, was not giving up your power. Like, you were the one in control of your power. You had the final say on you had the first and final say on everything that had to do with you. And that's what virgin meant. So in the myths, depending on how who you're going to, if you're going with Virgil, he was a Roman historian who did not like Greeks, and he was trying to... He basically wanted to sell them as very awful people. So in his version, Medusa seduces Poseidon, or they basically get together and get it on in Athena's temple, and Athena gets pissed off and says, well, fuck you, get the fuck out, and I'm turning you ugly because you dared do this. Some of the other versions are Medusa was raped by Poseidon, and Athena kicks her out. If we take all that into context, I definitely, given the fact of what virgin meant, I'd assume more it was definitely more of a rape, and therefore she lost her power. Her power was taken away. And then now the whole being punished for that, it does not sit right with nowadays sensibilities, obviously. But given the fact that her power was to turn men to stone, or turn anyone to stone who looked at her, there's a couple of ways you could take it. You could take it either there's two routes you can go with this. So first off, it was consensual, and she was basically flipping off her goddess, which that always ends great. Athena gets pissed, and rightfully so, and was like, well, if you're going to give away your power, and you're going to basically say, like, if you're going to choose to give away your power, and also say that this whole, like, not having sex is bullshit crap in my temple, and you're going to defile my temple like this, you can get the fuck out. And nobody's ever going to be able to look at your face again without turning to stone, so fuck you. That's one route we can take, and it's a valid route, honestly. The other route is her power was stolen from her by Poseidon, and she was raped, and Athena, to protect her and to give her some agency back from all that PTSD, because if we take it, she put herself in Athena's temple, and this is why it's a slightly more likely one, is that she was raped, and so she's, like, feeling powerless, feeling violated, all that stuff. And Athena's like, okay, look, so you did defile my temple, so I have to, quote, punish you for that, air quotes, because it's a patriarchal society, and therefore the woman is property and is always in the wrong and at fault. So Athena's got to, quote, air quote, punish her. So she's like, so I'm going to make it so you get all your own agency and power back, and no one will be able to come at you anymore without, like, basically getting there, without being turned to stone. Now, that does get a little hinky, especially in the myth of Perseus, where Athena, and this is why I think the first route is a little bit more likely, because Athena's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'll help Perseus to be able to kill Medusa. I'll give him my shield that's shiny enough that he can use it as a mirror, so he doesn't have to look directly at her, and therefore can chop off her head. So that's why I lean a little bit more towards maybe just taking that. If we take the myth of Medusa by itself, we go one of two ways. If we look at the myth of Perseus, if we add, like I say, Greek myths all tend to tie into each other. So if we put that on there, makes a little bit more case for the Medusa was a bitch and basically flipped off her goddess by defiling her temple, which also takes on a little bit of the rapey elements from Poseidon, but as we know, most of the Greek gods tended to be a little bit rapey because that was the style at the time, as they say in the Poisoner's Cabinet. Which, yes, very much the style of the time. But anyway, so Perseus and his mini quests, or his quests on the, there's a bunch of different quest stories, I get them mixed up occasionally. But Perseus was basically trying to get his kingdom back and rescue his mother. So he cut off Medusa's head because he needed that. Because basically his, whoever it was that was taking over as king, a regent or whatever, who was stealing his throne basically, was like, oh, I'll give you throne back if you can cut off the Gorgon's head. So he goes and does it. Takes her head in a sec, and with the winged shoes of Mercury that he gave him, he goes back to the palace and tells his mother to cover her eyes, closes his own, holds the Gorgon's head up, and everybody in there turns to stone except for him and his mother. And then he lives happily ever after as the rightful king. But anyway, after cutting Medusa's head off, while Medusa was technically still pregnant from her tryst with Poseidon. So, from her neck sprang her two babies. There was Chrysao. How do you say that? Chrysaor. I forget. I did not remember that I spelled that as an R. Okay, Chrysaor, which basically means young man with a golden sword. So, young man with a golden sword, who I'd never heard of. Because most of the time when you have the myth, it's like the only one that sprang from her neck was Pegasus. But apparently Pegasus had a brother, who was basically a young man with a golden sword. So Pegasus and Chrysaor both sprang from her neck, and Pegasus eventually got himself tamed a little bit. He was like completely wild. I forget which hero he was tamed. I think it might have been Jason the Argonauts, but I can't remember for sure. But he basically, and then after he was tamed, he went to go live on Mount Olympus after whatever quest and whatnot. So that is the constellation associated with Five of Swords in the Celestial Tarot. All right, moving on to the more traditional astrology. So in traditional astrology, basically Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn astrology, I have the Mystical Cats Tarot here, and we've got a Sphinx cat kind of cowering away from three other short hair cats, four others, that are all growling at him and like going to attack. It's in a back alleyway. So we've seen a couple of different styles of Five of Swords. One is, well, actually, we'll get into that, and I'll bring this card back up. But anyway, so we're going to focus on the astrology right now. So the traditional astrology associates the Five of Swords with the first Deacon of Aquarius, and following the Chaldean order of planets, Venus in Aquarius. Which in traditional astrology, Venus would be associated with the third Deacon because it's the ruler of Libra. But here we don't have a second sign inside of another sign. It's only the planets in the signs. So the first Deacon of Aquarius is ruled by Venus, and its title, given by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, is the Lord of Defeat. So the first Deacon, let's break it down. First Deacon of Aquarius, like I said earlier, is the entrance into the sign's energy and personality. As I explained earlier, this is where we're first meeting the energy. We're first starting to go through it. So if you're born within the first 10 degrees, 0 to 9 degrees of Aquarius, you might not feel very Aquarian. You might feel a little bit more associative with the sign before, which is Capricorn, because if there's this theory that we slowly work our way through all the zodiac signs and all of their energies type deal, and through reincarnation. It has some validity to it. I wouldn't be surprised. It'd actually be interesting if you went 1 degree every life. That'd be mildly amusing. But anyway, so you might feel a little bit more closer to Capricorn energy, or you might be like, oh heck yeah, I'm all Aquarius energy. I'm trying to embody this so freaking hard right now, because you're just entering into the Aquarian energy. You're just you're starting to figure out what it is. You don't know all the deets of it. You may not embody all of the different parts of Aquarius, and you might be but you might be trying to, or who knows, or something like that. But it's basically the entrance into the sign's energy and personality. So it's your first introduction to it. Venus is the mother, the lover, the creatrix. She is basically kind of the mother, the female goddess. Venus in Roman mythology was the goddess of love and a little bit of war, I believe. I believe they brought that back. So basically there's a long transition, and there's a YouTube out there that I cannot remember the title of it right off the bat, but basically Venus's mythology comes from way back in Mesopotamia, Sumerian and stuff, where it was Inanna, and there's another one, I forget her name, but I'm trying to find it while I'm also talking. So basically it started with the love goddess. The goddess of love was also a war goddess. Okay, so Overly Sarcastic Productions has there's 15-minute YouTube videos. They've got a clip on Aphrodite. So basically, coming from Sumerian, Aphrodite, Inanna, and all that were also war goddesses as well as love goddesses. Aphrodite also originally had that, but the Greeks didn't like that, so they split her up into two different Aphrodites as they were wont to do, and like they focused mostly on the one that was just love and romance and all that stuff, and they kind of pushed that war goddess aside, kind of gave a lot of that stuff to Athena. And then the Romans came along and they're like, well, totally looks like this, because Romans tend to do that. They like to integrate other gods into their own pantheons, which was part of why they ended up with such a successful empire. The Roman Catholic Church even took that, and that's why Christianity, if Catholicism, managed to be so successful with wiping out paganism, as they basically take those gods and say they're now saints or they're now evil. The Romans kind of did that. They were like, oh, Aphrodite, that sounds like our Venus. They're totally the same person. Venus, however, they brought back a lot more of that war aspect to her. So, Venus, I just lost my split. So, not only is she the mother and the lover of the creatrix, also a little bit of that warrior energy there. Venus, the planet, also rules our love, basically in our lives, love, attraction, power, beauty, pleasure, comfort, and Venus is known as the lesser benefic. So in astrology, Jupiter and Venus are the benefics. Jupiter's the greater benefic, Venus is the lesser. And they tend to have all good stuff and tend to just hand out sweets and ice cream type deal. They really very rarely have any negative aspects associated with them, or much in the way. They have some shadow, but there's not a whole lot, basically. Aquarius, again, is the unconventional and the unconventional people, the free thinkers, visionaries, and pioneers. Even if they're very comfortable where they're at as a fixed sign, it's like if things are going to change in the world, it's going to be because they want to, or in their world in particular. So, Five of Swords, Aquarius is a visionary crusader, a firm believer in struggle and insurrection, in justified struggle and insurrection. They don't hesitate to pick up the sword in righteousness, or in a righteous struggle for justice. Venus tends to want everyone to get along, and her first order of business is to put an end to the squabbling. So the image we see is the aftermath of a skirmish. So this is the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith one. Actually, this was based in the Wizard's Tarot is what they go off of. So the image they see is an aftermath of a skirmish, the victor claiming their spoils and the losers leaving in defeat. But even the victor recognizes it wasn't necessarily a clean win. The victor is left to pick up the mess before starting to build. Luckily, Benefic Venus will be there to help. So if we go back a little bit to the Hush Tarot, and my story of it is we've woken up from a sleep, been through a struggle, and now we're picking up the spoils of our wins. It could be either or. If you take the card by itself, there's been a fight, and the winner is now picking up their spoils. Or if we go in the story, it's we've rested, and now we've kind of gone through a struggle, and now we're picking up where we left off. It's okay, some of that struggle might have been internal in the Four of Swords. We were taking rest before we got into. It depends on how many different chapters you want to put in between type deal. Now, however, here we see a fight beginning to happen in the mystical cats, or the four victors are. Well, there's a couple things. This could be the before. So usually we see the aftermath of a battle. This seems to be the before of a battle. And the Sphinx Cat is either going to win or lose, but it definitely looks outnumbered. And a lot. Well, it's a Sphinx Cat, so it always looks more pathetic. And it could lose. But basically, this is the beforehand of a fight in this card. It's you're feeling under attack, you're feeling like you're about to be set upon by a bunch of people all at once. Now usually in the Five of Swords, it's one person has bested 2 to 3 other people, right? And they might have had to win through underhanded means. Might not have been as fair a fight as it looked. I mean, this doesn't look like there's going to be a fair fight either because it's 4-1. But maybe that one wins. Maybe through underhanded means, maybe through their own abilities, what have you. In the Mystical Cats, it's more of a this is about to happen, and there's a bit more of a question mark happening, like what is going to come of this? And like the Rider-Waite, where it's one lone victor and the abused walking away. Alright, so that is the astrology. It's a mess, disaster, battle's been fought, battle's been won, maybe not through greatest means, but Venus, the Lesser Benefact, will be there to make things all nice and better type deal. Alright, moving into the Kabbalah. We have 5 of Swords from the Archaeon Tarot, so we've got like a shirtless buff dude, warrior type deal, holding one sword and both a two-handed sword, and he's got 4 more on his back. He's all scarred up and rough, and if you're picturing a romance novel hero, you've got it correct. Alright, in the background there's a moon with a raven or a hawk on it. I think it's a raven. It's given the beak, I'm pretty sure it's more of a raven. It's a silhouette. So, and then this is one of the few in the Swords cards that is all very fiery. So this one, I think the Archaeon, you could take this as either fire or air very easily. So it's a very fiery card. Dude looks pretty beat up. So 5 of Swords, and it makes sense because so the 5 in Kabbalah, in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, is Gevura or Gebura. It's either V or B, and which means severity. So Gebura is located in Yetzirah, the Olam Yetzirah, the realm of creation. Also associated, or I associate it with air. It's ruled by, Gevra is ruled by Mars, and it's associated with strength and power. Strength, power, and judgment, which judgment could be either discrimination, or it could be an evaluation, or both. So either a discrimination, like, should I really do this? Do I really need to eat any ice cream right now? Or an evaluation of, like, looking at someone else and judging them, like, okay, they look like such and such. They look like they have got their shit together. So judgment comes in 2 forms, whether it's discrimination and evaluation, a bit of both. Gevura is associated with the left shoulder and arm. That is my right shoulder and arm that I have right-left confusion. So it's associated with the left shoulder and arm, and in that, let me think, alright, 1, 2, 3, throat, 4, 5. No, wait. Is that the throat? Yeah, third eye, throat. Forgot how many damn chakras there were. Alright, so Gevura is 1/2 of the throat chakra, basically. It is known as the Great Limiter, Karma, and Balance. Basically, so 4 is, we talked about it in the 4 of Swords last month. So the 4 is the mercy, is everything flowing, just like adds so much, the male aspect of more. Gevura is the 5th, quote, feminine aspect that comes in and does restriction, like, okay, more is nice, but how are you going to carry all that? Let's put some limits, let's put some boundaries, restrictions, let's, like, actually, like, put some goddamn common sense in here, type deal. So it's also the karma. It's the Sephiroth. Damn, there's the word. The Sephiroth name associated with karma, which is karma in the sense of this is all you did this life. We've got now here's the checks and balances on to the next life and how you've got to work through that. So in the 5 of Swords, and this coming from Tarot and the Tree of Life by Isabel Radau Pliegman. So the 5 of Swords, again, based off the RWS one, we have, so in the RWS, the Rider-Waite Smith, The picture of the dude in front, there's a dude in front holding 4 swords, and there's 2 others walking away. One's kind of pouting, the other one's got his head in his hands. And but if we start with the first, with the dude in front, if we associate with him, it's like, it's kind of he's smirking, he's gloating, he's got the last laugh, the power and advantage over the others. He's the one who basically, he won. And it's kind of a power trip. It's the people who are like, now have power over. It's like, hey, I won. I'm now the one in charge. Or we're see this as the person who caused us harm, caused us abuse. It could be like summed up as the victor teaching their opponents a much needed lesson about choosing their battles, is how I would see it in the Archaeon tarot here. Is like this. A lot of contemporary, especially like we see it here in the mystical cats as well, is it tends to be a lot more focused on the underdog, because especially since I think a lot of tarot cards are made in America, and in America we love an underdog story. We like the last possible like choice being the one to come out on top. The bottom of the pack comes out on the top. So we get a lot of underdog, like, which again could lead to a bit of a power trip methodology, where it's like, hey, I've been on the bottom and now I just beat you all and now I'm on top, bitch. So could see a little bit of both of that, because a lot of people, when I know there's even a word for it, or a phrase for it, and I forget what it is, but it's like when somebody has always been beaten down and abused, when they are suddenly given the power to be the abuser, they will totally take that to the next fucking level. I forget what it's called, but it's, you know how you see, you get stories from like World War II where it was the dude who was a grocery store, and then all of a sudden he's now in the Gestapo, and he gonna cause a shit ton of misery to other people. It's that kind of a deal. Or the person that was always bullied as a kid goes and becomes a police officer, and, well, as we know, police officers are all bullies, so now he's able to sit out there and treat other people like shit and get away with it. It's that kind of thing. It's the power trip. So now, granted, in a lot of contemporary ones, we see a lot more people identifying with the abuser, or the abused, rather than the abuser. So we get a lot of that feeling put down and like attacked from all sides here in the mystical cats, or the one person on his last legs who's like, I'm beat. I'm also being a little defensive because more people are coming at me here in the Archaeon. It's a very interesting one. Yeah, there's honestly just a lot to it psychologically. The fact that we as a society, especially here in the US, like the underdog tale. Like, everybody over top of us is abusing us, and now we're going to show them up and we're going to be on top. We like an underdog story where they climb out on top, like I said. And then it's like, but they're better than that. They're much more... they're not going to turn into the abuser. I don't know. I've seen some underdog stories, especially from Hollywood, that it's like, yeah, no, that was shitty to act. They basically had the power trip. There's a lot of it, so that's where a little bit of that judgment and that discrimination from Gevra needs to come in, and like, how much discernment of like, how much do I actually, like, where's a good point to stop, basically? Like, where's a good stopping point? How far is too far, type deal? You got to bring a little bit of everything in there. That's why I like it being associated with Gevra. It's like, especially since it's such a power trip, like, one victor over many type deal, it's like, bring a little of that discrimination of, how far is too far? Where do I need to stop? Where are my boundaries? Where are my limits? What are my ethics and morals associated with this? And that reminds me, that's where we're actually at. It is in the Kabbalah. I actually kind of forgot about that for a second. I was like, where am I? Alright, so, but anyway, all that, especially given the fact that we've got a lot of that lesser benefic energy of Venus sitting there going, you've won, here, have all this good stuff. We need a little bit of that. That gives us a little bit of that power trip, like, of that ego boost where we're like, hell yeah, I did it. I did good. I'm totally the best. It's like, now we need to bring a little of that Gevra energy and be like, that Mars energy to limit. Like, okay, hold the fuck up. Yes, great, you did good. Now, how much are you just now rubbing their faces in it? And should you really be doing that? Because then you're just the same as them, type deal. It's a very interesting. The fives tend to have that a lot. A lot of tarot, as we found, tend to have a lot of that duality of like, where is the happy medium? Finding a lot of that, and the nice thing about reading tarot is sometimes you know all the extremes and the happy medium, and depending on what comes, and then you can sit there and when a card comes up in a reading, you can intuit or feel based on the other cards like, where is this at? Is it at one of the extremes, or is it somewhere in the middle, or is it, where is it on that scale of this entirety of the card? Which is basically my entire hope for this. So, alright, so moving on to the Kabbalistic Angel, we have Iahel, the highest being, or God the highest being, is what it technically means, because El. So, Iahel is an archangel. Their verse is Psalm 119, 159, chapter 119, verse 159, if you do Psalmic magic. Iahel serves to acquire wisdom and rules over philosophers and enlightened individuals. So that's actually a nice, interesting bit to add in here, is because we've got Venus, like I was just saying. We've got Venus that's giving so much enlightened philosophy, scholars. There's a lot that's just added in there, but you need to also have that discrimination of what are the boundaries, where is too far type deal. So, which scholars and philosophers tend to be pretty good at finding all the different ends. Alright, so Iahel, the image on here, by the way, is an angel like, an angel with a very stern look on their face, pointing like this way. There are two people beneath them, one in front who's kind of like just looking all bedraggled and looking up like, but where do I go? What do I do now? And the other one is like kind of clinging onto the person in front and like, God, I just feel like they just look so, what is the word? Desolate. Like they're so bedraggled and like they're like, I can't even go any farther. And the angel is like a taskmaster, like, no, you need to go this way. Go. Like, you've got this much farther to go, you have to do it type deal. It's like they're like, I want to just stop at this point, and the angel's like, no, you've got farther to go, keep going. So those born under Iahel will love tranquility and solitude, and will precisely fulfill their duties and be distinguished by their modesty and virtues. Which is kind of a very fancy way of they're going to kind of be that angel. That one that's like, yeah, okay, you might want to stop here, but you've got shit to do, so keep going. Go, 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 go. Nope, none of this half-assing it. It's like, get it completely done. Alright, Iahel is the sole guardian of those born from 8:20 to 8:40 p.m., the physical guardian of those born January 19th to 23rd, and the moral guardian of those born March 4th, May 20th, July 31st, October 11th, and December 22nd. And speaking of angels, that is the being on the Fantasy World Tarot, is an angel. We've got an angel in a green toga with their wings spread up high behind them, sitting on a rock with pink, like vine bush, a sprig of pink flowers underneath the rock, and they're just like sitting there, a very calm and peaceful look on their face. Sun shining overhead, there's partly cloudy, well, there's clouds in the blue sky, white fluffy clouds, and the winds, you can tell the wind is blowing real hard, and they just look kind of peaceful and happy. Alright, so I've got, of course, got the symbol of Aquarius there, because, yeah, swords. Alright, so, An angel, according to Wikipedia, is a supernatural spiritual being who, according to various religions, is God's servant. Most often found in the Abrahamic religions, those Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Baha'i, I think it was, and a couple others. So most Abrahamic religions depict them as benevolent celestial intermediaries between God or heaven and humanity. Other roles include protectors and guides for humans and servants of God. I mean, that's kind of vaguely obvious. Abrahamic religions describe angelic hierarchies, which vary by religion and sect. Some are named, some are titled, and those expelled from heaven are fallen angels. So, according to most religions, there's a shit ton of angels, and we only know the names and titles of a few of them. Most Christian religions, a little bit pretty much all the Abrahamic religions have them hierarchied. Like, they're, like, as we go through the Kabbalah, you'll notice that I call I've been through this before, but like some of them are virtues, powers, dominions, angels, archangels, yada yada yada. Those are the hierarchies of angels, and that is what we most well know, is that they're all under hierarchies. Now, granted, when you actually get like spiritual people and like pagan communities and whatnot, like me, actually working with angels, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of hierarchy from what I can tell. I mean, now granted, I work with what are known as archangels, and I think some of it is they've just been given that title, and so they're like, okay, we'll keep it. That's me. So some of the angels are named like Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and I was about to say Jezebel, but that ain't an angel. That's the opposite of an angel. That's hilarious. Because I know there's some Anuel, pretty much all the ones in the Kabbalistic angel tarot. And of course, angels that were expelled from heaven for disobedience or whatever are fallen angels. So in art, they are depicted as humans of extraordinary beauty. They are often distinguished by birds' wings, halos, and divine light. Some of the oldest art of angels don't give them wings. It was later on that we started adding wings to probably distinguish them even more. The etymology of angel, it comes from the Old English engel, hard G, and the Old French angela, which both come from Latin angelus, and which is from the late Greek angelos, which means messenger. The earliest form is Mycenaean akero. Angelos might have been an Oriental loanword to Greek, basically, to Old Greek, and it was used to replace the Hebrew malak, which means messenger, which was used regardless of human or spiritual deliverer of divine messages. So basically, in Hebrew, malak meant a messenger who was delivering a divine messenger, whether they were human or angel. Moving from that, Judaism sees angels as God's subordinates who are inferior to humans, having no will of their own and only able to carry out one divine command, and after they carry it out, they basically dissipate. They no longer exist. They die, air quote. So they're pretty much like not even really sentient beings, basically, in Judaism. So this is moving into how different religions see them. So Christianity sees them as God's servants. They're spirits with a bureaucracy. In Islam, angels are essential workers and can be called upon. Archangel Gabriel was the one who delivered the Quran to Muhammad. Zoroastrianism sees angels as guardians who patronize humans and creatures and who manifest God's energy. Therefore they are emanations of him. So Zoroastrianism is where we're pretty sure where Judaism got a lot of its ideas, which filtered into Christianity. So Zoroastrianism gives them a little bit more agency, I suppose, but they're parts of the divine God, basically, the divine good. Baha'i faith, angels are ascended humans who have drunk the fires of God and severed all ties with the netherworld. So, yeah, there's that. There are also angels in Neoplatonism, Sikhism, they kind of fall similar categories. They're servants of God. In esotericism, the Kabbalah in esotericism, in Kabbalah, there's an angelic hierarchy similar to the Judaic one based on the Tree of Life. In Theosophy, they are devas who are forces of nature. So if you've ever, I remember I've read this in at least one book before where it was talking about how there are angels that are set over like certain tracts of land, and it slowly goes up, like one angel has a tree type deal, and then there's another angel that's the guardian of the entire forest, and another one that's the guardian of that entire land, and so on and so forth, bigger and bigger. Those are basically nature devas. So they're devas who are forces of, which basically is a form of a nature spirit, basically. So some people conflate angels with nature spirits, which some people also like to do that with the good folk, or fae, if you like. So, yeah, they're all different categories by BTW. Alright, and to wrap this up into a nice, neat little bow, in the traditional Five of Swords, traditional meanings, Five of Swords, I've got my vice versa tarot here. So we've got one dude on this side, the front side. We've got a dude standing tall, holding three swords, two over his shoulder and one in front of him at the point in the ground. And slightly off and behind him is, we're pretty sure the person he's defeated. Dude in a green cloak that's sitting on his knees, hands on the ground, head bowed, just like utterly defeated. And we've got the dude that's standing up, kind of ignoring him. It's a little bit like, hey, I'm better than you, and you know what? It's not really gloating here. Like, he looks very solemn, honestly. Like, I'm not going to shame you more by watching your grief type deal. It's a little bit like, you picked this fight, and you lost. Now you're going to have to learn from it type deal. It's like, I'm not going to make it worse by laughing at you or gloating or anything, but you had to learn. Now we go to that side, and we still see the same person standing, but now we can tell that he's actually watching someone else walk away. So that adds another layer of, like, he might have defeated someone, but he has still lost someone else. It's like, am I still not good enough? Have I done this wrong? He's looking off to someone who's walking away from him. He's watching someone else's back, which is a bit of a trope in literature, which is like, basically the one person striving to be as good as their hero, who they're constantly just always watching their back, watching them walk away. They can never catch up type deal. It gets a lot sadder if we add both of these layers on. It's like, yeah, I've conquered, but I still can't catch up with them. So in the traditional meaning, upright, petty and self-involved, thinking only of yourself, can be a time for self-reflection, but also sometimes you need to be sneaky to get what you want. Inverse or reversed. Someone wronged you, but do you need to be holding on to that resentment? Let it go. So that's the traditional fortune, those are the traditional keywords associated with Five of Swords, which if you're doing kind of quick and dirty fortune telling cards real fast, you got to get through, stick with the keywords. And that is that for the Five of Swords. Went a little bit longer than I meant it to, but we'll see if maybe I can edit it down to 45 minutes. Probably not, but we'll see. Alright, thank you all for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed this. Check me out on Facebook at OwlFoxOmens. Email me, OwlFoxOmens@gmail.com. Find me, like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube, because, yay. And if you're listening to this in podcast form, because I have a podcast, but might be a while before I get to this one, find me on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go find me on Spotify and Google Podcasts. At the moment, I need to get an iTunes ID, and that way I can put these on iTunes. But so try finding me on iTunes. Maybe I'll be there. But yeah, go find me as a podcast. Probably a lot easier to listen to, especially if you don't have the subscription to YouTube, which lets you listen to these on your phone without having YouTube pulled up all the fucking time. Which, it can be irritating. It can be very, very irritating. But anyway, hope y'all have a great rest of your whatever, and I will see you next week for Jupiter. Alright, bye.